So, I am Hrushikesava Raju. I am working here as associate professor in KL University, especially in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Recently, in this year, KL University is announced as one of best university, and it is under 50. So, I am proud to be part of KL University. So, here when you take many subjects, so one of the subjects today we are going to see, especially that is database management systems. So, in that particularly three concepts I am focusing. So, first concept is data models, second concept is ER model, means ER diagram, and third is the commands in SQL. So, first coming to the data models. So, the purpose of data model is, so in order to store and in order to access the information from a database. So, we are going to use a data model. So, a data model tells about how we are going to accessing the information, how the data going to be organized in that predefined form. Then you can say that is a data model. So, data models of many types. So, initially we are having hierarchical data model, then network data model, then relational data model, then model, then object oriented model. These are prominent data models we are going to see in DBMS. So, in DBMS, so these data models are very much important, because we are dealing with the way data going to be organized and the way we are going to access all that information. So, first we are going to see the first kind, hierarchical data model. So, there the information going to be stored in a parent child form. So, when you take the information in parent child form, that means they are organized like a tree form. So, there accessing become very easy, and any stakeholder or end user going to understand the flow easily through that tree like structure. So, that is hierarchical data model. So, next coming to network data model, which is almost similar like hierarchical data model, but it is somehow complex organizations going to use this kind of network model. Suppose you have any university, there not only one department, many departments will be there, like engineering departments, non-engineering departments, so and non-teaching staff and admin role, administration, and many other wings were there in a university. So, if you take a portion that going to be handled by hierarchical data model, if you take a big organization where many wings are there, for that network data model going to be best suited for that. And coming to the third, that is a relation data model. So, it is actually we are going to use Oracle and MySQL all for relational database. So, what is relational data model means, where the information going to be stored in a table, especially like in the form of rows and columns. And one of the benefit of relational data model is we can enhance the table size to the extent possible. So, next we are moving on to another type called entity relationship model. So, most of the organizations, so they can use this entity relationship model in order to showcase their functionality to the stakeholders and to the public. So, in that way, so entity relationship model plays a role. That also we are going to first data models. Now, we are discussing the data models only. So, in the data models we seen the purpose of it, as well as if you see the types of the models. First, hierarchical model, that we already seen, and the network data model, that also we seen, and entity relationship model, that now we are seeing, and relational data model. So, we are discussing this topic now. So, in this the information going to be organized in a table like rows and columns. So, the main benefit is it can be scalable. So, you can enhance the size and you can reduce the size. And entity relationship data model, if you see, so where a pictorial representation we are going to follow in order to represent the functionality of the organization. So, there some of inherent properties we are going to use for building up a pictorial diagram for any organization flow. So, which are we can consider as entities, attributes, and we can also use relationships. So, entities there we have strong entities and weak entities. So, anyway that is a separate concept we are going to discuss in detail, but here entities and attributes and the relationships among the those entities going to be going to be provided as a graphical representation for the flow of any organization functionality. And last one, if you see object oriented model. So, there the flow and functionality is based on objects. So, everything we are going to consider as an object. So, whatever you are going to define, and that we are going to consider as objects. So, object is nothing but instance for a class, instance for some functionality. So, the members of the functionality we are going to retrieve, we are going to call using that object. So, if you take any organization, so we can consider faculty as one object, student as one object, and books as one object, course as one object, administration as one object. Like that we can consider a simple one to a complex one also an object. Okay. So, those are the types of data models. So, we see in first concept called data models, that I hope you are going to understand the overview of that data models through this listing of data models. So, data model is nothing but organization of data and accessing of information, how easily you are going to access, going to be represented in that. And the listing of data models, if you see hierarchical data model and network data model, ER model and relationship model, means relationship model, and last one object oriented model, and there are many other are there, but these are the prominent and important data models. So, you are watching and you are going to observe when you are using many kinds of technologies and many kinds of daily life problems. And coming to the second concept called second kind of concept called ER model. So, this one. So, in ER model three terminologies we are going to focus. One is entities, other is attributes, and last is the relationships. So, entities, suppose you take a student have age, gender, the course, and address, and many other attributes are going to be used. So, what is ER diagram means? Pictorial representation of the flow of any organization, or a flow of some snapshot of functionality of any real life problem. So, if you take that one entity, we are going to specify as a rectangle with rounded corners, and attributes we are going to represent as ovals, means eclipses we are going to use as a symbol, and the relationships we are going to specify as a diamond symbol. So, these are the notations we are going to follow. So, in that also there were again many other concepts are there. So, while you are going through the concepts, you are going to learn those notations and the shapes that are going to use for handling such kind of such kind of snapshots or such kind of scenarios. So, see here, as I told that student is an entity. So, rectangle we are going to use, and the attributes we are going to represent by eclipses. So, student have name, address, age, ID. And one more thing here, in this attribute, in this entity, there were attributes have a link to that. So, in which one of the attribute is a key attribute. So, that you can consider as primary key. So, ID generally any student we are going to identify by their roll number, by their register number. So, ID. So, ID you have to underline in this case. So, then only it can be considered as key attribute or primary key. Next, remaining are normal attributes only, they are not useful for identifying the student. but uniquely if you want to identify, ID is the only one attribute. And so, if you see here, entity will have one type of it called weak entity. What is weak entity means? So, it is dependent on other entity, so that do not have any primary key. So, any entity which is depending on other entity, so that is called weak entity. Example, if you see, so employee, if you take a loan, the installment depends on the loan ID. Loan have ID, but installment do not have ID. So, and the weak entity going to be represented using double rectangle going to be used for representing weak entity, and it is dependent on loan. Here in this case, it is identified by this entity, and it do not have primary key, and loan have primary key. So, the entity which have primary key, that is called here strong entity, and the entity which do not have primary key and dependent on other entity is called weak entity. So, in that way weak entity going to be clarified. And coming to here attributes, so key attribute, composite attribute, multi-valued attribute, derived attribute. Key attribute we already seen, ID that we considered as key attribute. So, we have to underline it. If you come to name again split it into first name, middle name, last name. So, that is an example for composite attribute. And if you take one more attribute, phone number, a person can have many phone numbers. So, multiple phone numbers will have for a person. So, we can say that time that is a multi-valued attribute. That time we are going to specify that a multi-valued attribute through a specific symbol. So, it is composite attribute. Double eclipses we are going to use for multi-valued attribute. So, next derived attribute. So, that can be specified by dashed eclipse. What is the meaning of this is, it is dependent on another attribute. So, the value of that attribute going to be calculated based on its dependent attribute. Suppose age of a person, generally we are going to be determined from date of birth. Based on date of birth we are going to calculate age of a person. So, it is example for derived attribute. And another third terminology in ER diagram is the relationships. So, the relationships going to be represented using a diamond. So, if you take a teacher and a student, so a teacher can teach course to a student. Here that have verb, we have to specify verb for that that kind of relationship. So, and here the relationships are many types, one to one, one to many, many to one, many to many. If you take here what kind of relationship the student and a teacher can have, a teacher can teach more than one course. Okay, so, one to many. Okay, we will also have in detail about that kinds of relationships. So, one to one if you take, in Indian culture the marriage, how it happens. So, a woman can marry only one gent. So, that is only the thing we are practicing from our forefathers. So, a female, only one female, you marrying only one male. So, married two. So, it is example for one to one. And coming to one to many, so scientist, if you take scientist can invent many inventions. So, not only one idea, he can implement many ideas. So, one to many. So, here the relationship name is invents, and entities are involved in this case are scientist and invention. And coming to third one, many to one. So, a student can enroll to many courses. So, a student in a particular semester not only enrolling to Python, may also enroll to AI, may also enroll to data science, that depends on the curriculum in that semester. Next, many to many, if you take, so means many entities going to interact with many other entities. So, employee is assigned to many projects. So, not only one project an employee can handle. So, a project can also have many employees. So, a project can have 50 employees, 100 employees, that depends on size of the problem and funding. So, here many to many example going to be specified through this relationship. So, that is about ER diagram. In second concept ER diagram, what we seen is, so entities and the attributes and the kinds of relationships, all how we are going to use in establishing, in organizing such kind of terminologies, in making up of any functionality of any organization. So, in that way we are going to use this kind of the ER diagram. And ER diagram nowadays it is very much popular in any project that you take up, like the students who are at the end semester, they are doing a project, and in any PhD thesis dissertation. So, this is one kind of tool those people can make use of, and they can represent their ideas and their functionality through this kind of notations. And coming to the third last concept, that is called commands. So, the commands, if we take, there are for our convenience the commands are of 4 types. So, DDL commands, DML commands, DCL commands, TCL commands. So, what they stand for and what are the kinds of commands they cover, and what are the syntax of those commands, and what each command will going to do, we will see briefly. So, without this third concept, so DBMS all goes waste. So, DBMS is going to withstand by following these kinds of commands. So, DBMS main motto is to giving some privileges and avoid some kinds of privileges to layer wise employees. Means staff have some kind of privileges, students have some kind of privileges, HODs and heads have some kinds of privileges, and the higher levels have some kinds of privileges, like that. So, that privileges all going to be managed in this using this DBMS. That is why in every real life problem DBMS plays a vital role. So, in that, so any administrator want to maintain their data, and they want to provide security and protection to the data. So, they have to follow these kinds of these categories of commands. First, if you see, this is the flowchart of the command categories of commands. So, first DDL commands, data definition language commands, where just we are interacting with creation of structures, removing of the structures, templates. So, all altering of those structures, all we are going to see in this DDL commands. So, there especially the commands create, drop, truncate, alter, rename, all are we are going to see in these DDL commands. Next, the second category of commands is DML commands, data manipulation language commands. There we are going to retrieve the data, and we are going to insert data into a table, or we are going to delete certain data using where clause, or if you want to delete all data from a table using star in that. And update command, if you want to change a particular column data, we can change that column data using update command, especially set keyword. So, those things we are going to see in short time. And third is DCL, data control language commands. There grant and revoke are going to be used, and what is the purpose of those we are going to see. And last category is TCL, transaction control language commands. There we are going to see commit, rollback, and save point, set transaction. Those things we are going to see in this. So, first coming to DDL commands. So, we start with create, then we go to drop, then truncate, then alter, then rename. We also have comment. So, these are varieties of commands we are going to use under DDL commands, data definition language commands. So, if you see here listing create. So, this command is used to create a source, data source like a table in order to in order to work on that. And drop command is used to delete that object. Then alter is used to change the structure of the table, like if you want to add 2 columns to your table, we can add it. We can modify the table structure also, we can modify. We can delete some columns also, we can delete using drop. So, modify, drop, alter, add or the commands or the keywords we are going to use in that command, alter command. So, next truncate, then rename. So, for the file, that means whatever we seen this kind of renaming, especially in files. So, rename old file name, new file name, so that now onwards that old file name will be treated as a new file name. So, that is in case of file organization, file management system. Now, we are in relational database. So, database management system, there we are having tables and we are having database names. Those names you can change